Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Lessons in Creativity with your host, Sydney Price. Thank you guys so much for, tapping in with me every week. We're going strong. I'm just so proud. I'm really proud of the the momentum that's happening right now, and I'm just excited for you guys to see this to unfold with you, because this is the journey. Speaking of momentum, my wonderful transitions. In today's episode, I do want to talk about momentum. I want to talk about what it looks like to maintain pace for yourself when creating, and it kind of coincides with an earlier episode where I was talking about creative sustainability, and I think that creative momentum is just a huge part of that sustainability. I think I'm in a space where I'm trying to figure out what momentum looks like for me, and it's really interesting because we all know what we look like when we're at our best, right? When most things are going well, when you don't have to stress, when you don't have to worry about how it's gonna be figured out, when you feel like you can navigate the ups and downs a little bit easier. We all know what that looks like. But when it starts getting to be stressful, when it starts to be a little bit much and you start to feel overwhelmed, okay, how do you keep up momentum then? I think about that now while I'm in the space of calm before the storm, right? Because to give you a little bit of insight, with my industry and with my job, this is about to be the busiest 3 months of the year for me, really. And I'm just really trying to lock in on my systems, on what is my sustainable practices, because once you're in it, it's hard to pivot, you just kind of gotta go with what you have. But I think there's room and there's space and there's lots of learnings that you can have in the process. But before that happens for me, I'm setting the stage. So momentum for me is a little bit of consistency, right? It's not the same exact thing as consistency. I think that momentum comes from consistency, but they're not exactly the same thing. So right now, consistency for me is the byproduct of everything else that I'm doing. I'm trying to focus on how can I set myself up for success. I think that part of it is redefining what momentum looks like for me and what consistency even looks like for me, because I had to make that delineation between consistency and being constant. That is two different things. When you're constantly working at something or constantly doing something, it's a repetitive motion, but it's it almost feels like it's a day-to-day thing, moment-to-moment thing. It's way more frequent than consistency actually looks. Consistency can be you only post one time a week. For example, this podcast. Consistently, this podcast shows up one time a week, but it's not showing up every single day, because that is not sustainable for me right now. I think that's what it is for me. Really creating that separation and understanding that my consistency is going to look different than other people's consistency. And if I put out 4 episodes in 1 month, that's already 100 times better than what I even did this time last year. 4 episodes in a month is consistent for me, and that is my momentum. I think with momentum too, it's what do you do when you're on a high and then you kind of fall? You're at it, you're doing everything you need to do, and suddenly you just have a moment. Something happened, life's. What do you do when that happens, when your momentum falls off? It's so much for me. It is so much for me. It's forgiving myself through it, because it happens and you are human. So it's okay to fall off of your consistency or your momentum or whatever. So it's that piece of it. And then it's also the bouncing back. So episode 1 of Lessons in Creativity talks about the bounce back. How it's not about how you fall. It's about how you bounce back. It's about how you get up. So if you fall off your momentum, what is the why? Was it that you had a bad day? Was it that you had nothing really prepared for what you were trying to do? Figuring out the why and then going at it again with a different perspective. In that going at it again, I'm encouraging myself differently. I'm speaking to myself positively, which is a whole different thing when it comes to creativity in itself. And we'll probably talk about that in later episodes. But knowing how to get back up when I fall off is just as important. And I almost feel like that's also a part of the momentum too. Your ability to start again or just try again is a part of your momentum. So redefining what momentum looks like for me, what consistency looks like for me, and how it's different from showing up constantly. And honestly, like doing some unlearning of what productivity looks like too. Like that's a huge word, and I think productivity is a huge buzzword in the world of creating, in the world of business, entrepreneurship. And I myself have a ton of productivity content on my page and otherwise. And what I've come to learn is that this can also be a toxic mindset. So I've been trying to unlearn productivity as something that is unsustainable and learn it as something that is sustainable, and also recognizing that I am still valuable outside of my productivity. And that's that is where the real work starts. Like I am still valuable even when I'm not being quote unquote productive, and that rest is also productive and essential to my process and my momentum. So I think all of these things are like what I'm in the weeds of right now and what I'm trying to just figure out. So if you do have any advice for that, let me know in the comments below. Let me know, shoot me a DM and let me know. But that is definitely a big part of my journey right now, maintaining momentum and figuring out what it looks like for me as an individual, and also unlearning things like toxic productivity and hustle culture and all of those things that are just like fed to those of us that are trying to build and create something special. Before I wrap, I just kind of want to leave you with a little bit of words of encouragement for anyone that is trying to navigate momentum itself. Please know, because I'm telling myself this, we all know that there are seasons, right? And if there is a season for everything else in life, there's always going to be a season for movement and a season for stillness. So trust that if this is your momentum season, that in that momentum, you will have moments of movement and moments of stillness, moments where you need to reflect, and moments that you need to go out and learn and to embrace the process of learning. So know where you are in that, because that will help you to stay the course. I think at the end of the day, momentum is just staying the course, just still doing. Even when you fall off, even if you haven't done it in a while, even if it doesn't look the way you want it to look right now, just still doing the thing, however that looks for you. So thank you guys for listening to another episode of Lessons in Creativity. Please don't forget to leave me a rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and also like this video if you're watching on YouTube. So thank you guys again for listening to another episode of Lessons in Creativity, and I will see you in the next one.